afternoon, everybody. How are you doing? How are you doing? Hey, this is an exciting event. Come on, how are you doing today? Good. Welcome to the Columbus Metropolitan Club. My name is Anthony McIntosh. I am president and COO of Uprise, and I'm also a member of your CMC Board of Trustees. I also serve as the chairman of the DE&I committee for the club. Today's forum is part of CMC's ongoing Developing a Dynamic Downtown series. Thank you to all of our presenting sponsors, the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation, wow, that's a lot, and Capital South, and series sponsors Thompson Hine. We also want to thank the sponsors of today's program, Huntington, Schneider Downs, the Edwards Company, the Robert Weiler Company, Installed Building Products, AECOM, Marker Construction, and COSI. Thank you to our host, the Ellis, for their generous support for today's program. We're also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Dispatch. Now, can everyone just put your hands together to thank all of our sponsors today? And I appreciate the fact that I was able to read all those sponsors without screwing it up. All right, so welcome to today's forum, the state of downtown, downtown's next big transformation. The past decades have brought huge changes to downtown Columbus, including a reimagined riverfront, one-of-a-kind cultural attractions, and new retail and housing. But a modern downtown would demand even more. Today we'll talk about what's happening right now in downtown and what's yet to come. We'll also be the first to hear about a brand new initiative to enhance connectivity in the core of our city. To introduce today's panelists, please welcome John Koff from series sponsor Thompson Hine. John?
Thank you, Anthony. Thompson Hine is pleased to be the sponsor of this series. And for today's program, it's of special interest to me as a construction attorney here in Central Ohio. Construction's been in my family for 3 generations. My grandfather was a civil engineer, my father was a pipe fitter, and my mom baked and catered for her customers, including people like Jack and Ann Russilli and Sherry and Jack Lux. And I earned some of my first dollars making things for those folks and delivering stuff to their houses. It's been a privilege for me to work with Thompson Hine for the last 2 decades. The firm's been around for over a century, and it's been transforming the way people build and develop things throughout the country and throughout Ohio and here in Central Ohio. Thompson Hine has been at the forefront of change in Ohio. We helped push through construction reform so we could change the way we build public projects, removing barriers to construction and enabling us to make better use of our public dollars so we can build better and we can build faster. Thompson Hine also blazed a trail 30 years ago, doing something different than other firms had done, and formed its own subsidiary, Project Management Consultants, which has got a team of engineers, architects, financial strategists, project managers that's available to help people build better, stronger communities. We have the bench strength, knowledge, and resources to help you build. For me, my dad wasn't at home when I woke up in the mornings to go to school. His days as a pipe fitter start a lot earlier than mine, so he was always gone. But I'm proud to be able to stand here and say that I get to work downtown now in Columbus. I get to work in an office tower that my dad got up early in the morning to build. I also have the privilege now, having worked at Thompson Hine, to drive by, make relationships and drive by clients who have built office buildings here and have their headquarters here in Columbus. My group and team at Thompson Hine is behind affordable housing projects here in Columbus and throughout Ohio. It's really a great time to be here. And I take a lot of pride, too, in being able to take my family and meet my friends over at the Crew Stadium, because that's a stadium that my firm helped build. So it's a great time to be here. I love Columbus. I'm glad everyone's come out. We're going to celebrate some new developments that are coming our way. It's going to be exciting. But today, I have the privilege of sitting and listening and learning a little bit from some really good people that are doing some really good things for our community. And so, without further ado, and I stole his lunch card so I could get through the full panoply of all of the words in the organization he works for. But you all know him. It's Marc Conte. He's going to kick things off here. He's with the Capital, Crossroads, and Discovery Special Improvement Districts. Marc, podium's all yours.
Thank you, John, and thank you to the Columbus Metropolitan Club for hosting the forum again this year. My own story about my dad's background: he's a retired iron worker, and even though we grew up in Cleveland, he had work down here. So I remember coming down here in the 70s to see the job site at Nationwide Plaza 1, and then again later at the Ohio Center and the Hyatt. So it is wonderful to see those buildings every day while working downtown. It's an honor to be here to present the annual State of Downtown report as produced by the staff of the Capital, Crossroads, and Discovery Special Improvement Districts. You can find the full report online at downtownservices.org or by scanning the QR code on the card on your table. I'm delighted to share positive news about the ongoing strength of downtown investment. In 2023, we witnessed the completion of $206 million of new private investments with an additional $803 million currently underway. We saw significant completions west of the river with the completion of the Ginther Hotel and one at the Peninsula. And then Current, which is this beautiful, spectacular public art piece over Gay and High from Janet Eckelman's on the cover of our report, that debuted this year. And also at this intersection, we'll be seeing the long-awaited renovation of the Madison as that nears completion, and 2 new restaurants set to open this quarter, adding to the vitality of that intersection. The downtown population continued to increase. It now stands at 12,000 residents. With 1,600 more units under construction right now, we should see the population grow to 13,000 by the end of this year and up to 16,000 by the end of 2026. Downtown apartment vacancy is at 90%, and these apartments continue to command higher rents than in the suburbs. But downtown is adding apartment units at a lot of other price points. Both the Vera on Broad and Topiary Park Crossing opened last year, and collectively they opened 202 new workforce housing units in the Discovery District. Now, turning to the office market, the downtown office vacancy rate dropped slightly from 21.3% to 21.1%. And if you take that together with the suburban office vacancy rate dropping as well, we're starting to see what I think will be a stabilization in the office market, at least in this region, where office leasing will grow in tandem with job gains. There are positive signs with ground floor retail. Downtown had 14 net new openings in 2023, the largest number in a decade, highlighted by the new Jackie O's on 4th Street. The popular Lunchbucks program run by the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation expanded in 2023. Workers and residents redeemed a total of 11,000 $10 lunch vouchers, providing direct financial support to downtown restaurants. Downtown's hospitality sector continues to improve. Hotel occupancy increased to 54.3%, and the number of visitors increased. There were more than 5 million unique visitors to downtown in 2023. Collectively, they made a combined 27.7 million visits, a 7% increase over 2022. All of this new development, all of this new growth, all the trends, they're very terrific. New and reused buildings are giving people more places to live, work, shop, and visit. But what's happening on the street and what's happening on the sidewalk is really central to a person's experience when they come downtown, and often more important than what's happening on the floors above. The Capital, Crossroads, and Discovery Special Improvement Districts, funded by a community-minded group of 800 property owners in the core, provide services to make sure that everyone coming downtown has the best experience possible. The CID's cleaning ambassadors keep downtown looking good with activities like litter control, leaf removal, and power washing. And with more residents, that means more dogs, and more dogs means more dog waste. So the Clean Team, we service 19 pet waste stations, and they made 1,100 service calls to those pet waste stations last year. They also provided 1,500 hours of flower watering to landscaping maintained by the SIDS. The SIDS also have safety ambassadors that actively patrol 540 acres of downtown. Last year, they put on 20,000 miles on their bikes. They also serve as eyes and ears for the police, respond to calls about trespassing, intimidating behavior, car break-ins, and other quality of life issues. 3 homeless outreach staff interact with anyone on the street who appears to be in need or in crisis. In 2023, this outreach team was able to help 312 people, that's 6 people every week, move off the street in either permanent housing, temporary shelter, or with reconnected family and friends. And there's an incredible amount of work going on behind the scenes most people will never see, but all goes into making downtown the safest precinct in the city. The 2 districts conceive a network of over 140 downtown public and private sector security professionals who share pertinent security-related information. The districts lead calls and meetings with residents, property owners, businesses, and city officials in specific areas of downtown to address challenges such as illegal parking, drug activity, or persons in need. They coordinate and lead weekly calls with social service partners to determine how to effectively engage with persons in crisis and get them off the street. And the districts manage a shared radio program with more than 50 security operations that allow the SIDS and the participants to share information in real time. The efforts of the 2 special improvement districts lay the foundation for the success of new developments and is helping to make our downtown become the cleanest, safest, and most vibrant downtown in the nation. Once again, you can find the full report at downtowncolumbus.org. Or I'm sorry, downtownservices.org. Too many websites. And now it's my great honor to introduce today's panelist and moderator. Please give a big CMC welcome to Jeff Edwards, Chairman, President, and CEO of Integrated Building Products and the Edwards Company. The Honorable Andrew J. Ginther, Mayor of the great city of Columbus. And our host and panel moderator, Stacia Naquin, news anchor with ABC6 and Fox 28. Stacia, welcome back to CMC. We look forward to today's conversation.
Thank you so much. Very excited to be here with you. Today is part of the Dynamic Downtown series. And I think that word is so key when we're talking about dynamic. What a wonderful way to describe our downtown. We're talking about energy. We're talking about vibrancy. We are talking about force, motion. There is a lot happening, and there's so much that we want to share with you today about what comes next. So with that, I'm going to open it up with Mayor Ginther. There is some very exciting news that you are here to share about what's next for downtown. Tell us what is happening.
Well, thank you so much to the Metropolitan Club and Stacia and Jeff for joining me today to talk a little bit about this exciting new effort that we think is really going to help bring new life and take our efforts downtown to a whole new level. You know, I often say that my top 3 priorities are neighborhoods, neighborhoods, neighborhoods. Well, downtown is everybody's neighborhood. But throughout our history, not everybody has felt welcome in downtown. And so a big push for us has been around affordable housing. And what we're going to share today and talk about is a new Capitol line that will help to connect through a 2-mile loop some of the great amenities that we've invested in together as a community over the last couple of decades, really bringing them to life and starting to leverage underutilized space and area in downtown to bring it to life for tourists, visitors, our families, folks that live throughout this community and region, for everybody to make sure whether you're on 4 wheels or 2 wheels or 2 feet, that you feel safe and welcome downtown and experiencing some incredible amenities. I have a volleyballer in our household, so we spend a lot of time in convention centers in different places around the country. And about a month ago or so, we were blessed on a mild day to be in Indianapolis. If you've been in a volleyball tournament, when you have a break of an hour or so, you go outside if you can, due to the whistles and noise and looking for some natural light and some clean air. And so we just happened upon the Heritage Trail there in Indianapolis, an incredible example of what's possible. You look at the Beltline in Atlanta and the Heritage Trail in Indianapolis. This is what we want our downtown to realize, and all the incredible people who work and live there and come to play and visit there. So we're excited to share some more about that today, but we think it's the next step for downtown's comeback, and most importantly, to connect neighborhoods adjacent to downtown and throughout our community to downtown and everything it has to offer. And I have to pause here and thank Jeff. Jeff bet and went big on downtown when everybody thought he was crazy 25 years ago. And I really believe that Gay Street now shows us the great possibility and potential for all of downtown. We think one of the reasons we think this loop is going to be so important, connecting all these amenities, our downtown, we have one of the biggest, largest, from a square mile standpoint, downtowns in all of America. And so, we're trying to learn from Jeff's leadership and others to focus in on a particular area, connecting these amenities, and then making sure the underutilized space in between the amenities along the Capitol line are leveraged, for places for folks to gather, for different types of entertainment, and an ability to connect and celebrate public art and other things right in our downtown.
Now, with the sidewalks already being there, because I'm sure even as we're looking at this map here, we have all walked these sidewalks and we've been to these venues. What is it that you think makes the Capitol line more accessible, more walkable than the infrastructure that is already there?
Well, certainly dedicated bike lanes, wider areas for sidewalks and for people to move about, putting our motorists on notice that the world does not revolve around them, and that this downtown and this city belongs to everybody. But obviously the streetscapes, the public art that's already been invested in, that this plan also contemplates really making it a much more safer place for people on bikes and on foot.
Well, and the commonality of materials. I mean, there'll be consistent paving, consistent, furniture, signage, graphics. Another fact about downtown Columbus is that the tree canopy in downtown Columbus is 9%. That's not very good. It's 22% in the city of Columbus in general, and that, as compared to kind of some of the greener suburbs that you think about, also is not where it should be. So this is an opportunity also along this trail to really, and we noticed this when we visited even New York. We think of New York as a concrete jungle, and yet, a group of us spent 2 days walking along the riverfront there, and it was very, very hot, and we were only out of shade a brief period of time, and so we could do a better job with that, and it just made everything feel that much better. So there'll be a major green component to this too.
So in the ultimate finished product, do we lose much in the scope of roadways in downtown?
I don't think so. I think we right-size it. People will still be able to travel, but right now when you look at a lot of downtown areas, and certainly what's envisioned and contemplated with the Capitol line, it's all designed and revolves around vehicles, car vehicles. And we still know that 80% of the cars on the roadways in Central Ohio are driving around with one person in them. That's not a place where you can create what we're contemplating here, a place where folks feel safe, welcome, and able to enjoy these incredible amenities. I mean, just think about the field trip possibilities. I'm thinking about my 13-year-old in her class. They're going to DC to visit all those special places. Think about school children from around Ohio that could come and walk the Capitol line and be exposed to NVMM, the State House, all these incredible amenities, COSI. We think this is going to be very powerful for folks that live here, that were born and raised here, that are new to our community. But we also know from all our partners in the tourism and hospitality industry, when people come to Columbus, they fall in love with the place. And we think this is just going to give us an incredible new opportunity to grow, because we know that's critically important for us from an economic development standpoint for the future. We know we're going to grow by a third more. I think this is going to help us do it and do it the right way.
And this is, it's kind of funny to look at it this way, but our roadways are kind of an underutilized asset. And quite frankly, even more so than many of our peer cities, the right-of-way for roadways in Columbus is greater than it is in many other places and greater than it certainly needs to be here in Columbus. And so that's a large part why they don't feel friendly from a pedestrian perspective. And I mean, the typical layout is 16 feet of sidewalk with some street signs and some parking meters on both sides of the street. And then other than that, it's a thoroughfare. So this would be a chance to take that same amount of right-of-way. I mean, the fabulous thing is we're not acquiring an asset. We don't have to buy land and things like that. We're just going to use it better and take that 80 feet, let's say, that exists between the buildings on Gay Street, north and south side, and just reimagine that in a way in which it accommodates both traffic to the extent that it needs to, but really, really, really emphasizes a fabulous pedestrian experience.
So what is the cost of a project like this, and how do we pay for it?
I knew you'd ask that question.
Well, I imagine a few people had that question on their minds as well.
When you look at some of these around the country, I think we can ballpark. It's still a dream and a vision and working through it, but our commitment is to making it a reality. It's in the ballpark of about $100 million looking at other projects around the country. We're working hard to line up resources from the private, other public sector, philanthropic sources. The city's going to be all in. And Downtown Development Corporation, one of our most successful and strongest organizations, is going to be leading the way on this. But this is a top priority for me. You know, as I think about opportunity rising, the equity agenda, downtown belonging to everybody and everybody being able to feel safe and welcome and to be able to experience some of the incredible amenities of this community. We're going to get it done, but it's going to be because everybody in this community is joining this effort. We know how to do big things and to leverage public-private partnerships better than anybody in America. And this is going to be another great example of that.
And if we do just an average job, but I've already said we're not going to do an average job. We're going to do a much better than average job. But an average job, if you look at some of the other cities that have done this, that $100 million would be returned at a ratio of, for $1 invested, you get $27 back in increased development. So spots along the trail or along the line that right now might not be prime for development really immediately become prime for development, and the density starts to fill in around and inside of this trail.
Well, let's talk more about that, because there is cost and then there is value ultimately. And I know, Jeff, as a downtown developer, now a downtown resident, why do you see this as necessary ultimately for the value of what it will bring to the community? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, as we shift, I think we all know, away from 5 days a week, 40 hours a week, if not more, in the office, and downtown shifts from really a place to work and not so much live, but to one where we really have to encourage the livability. I think ultimately this is a huge attraction for those that would live downtown. But a nice place to live in terms of downtown is also a nice place to work, and they feed off of one another. Mm-hmm. So, I mean, anybody in this room, either one, cares about downtown, or two, maybe lives downtown, or three, works downtown. And if you've kind of walked the streets, you know that we could do a better job in that regard. And even though the riverfront in the South Mile was a fabulous undertaking by the whole community, and no one can complain about kind of the outcome, and then ultimately even the peninsula, but it's really stretched things out again. And we suffer a little bit from that lack of connectivity and that lack of density. And this idea, I think, will, like I said, concentrate the density and actually shift really the focus of downtown around the riverfront, which is really one of the next ideas, too, is to get some more residential amenities along the riverfront and make it more usable in that regard.
Well, because we see in the map and we see the locations that we already love, but Mayor, do you find this as an opportunity for expansion of retail and other amenities on down the line?
Yeah, and I think it really, to the point Jeff was making, it helps us leverage and utilize amenities we've already invested in. We've already made world-class organizations, in Scioto Mile, MVVMM, COSI, all of these great amenities, the State House, as we mentioned. This really helps us leverage those amenities, connect them and encourage more development and investment downtown by having this in place. Sometimes people ask me in other neighborhoods, why is downtown so important? Downtown, even post-pandemic, is one of the largest job centers in the city of Columbus. And here's the bottom line. The folks that work in downtown or that live there and work remotely are funding basic city services in neighborhoods all over our city. And even post-pandemic, because we've had one of the greatest comebacks in a downtown of any city our size in the country, we're still the heart and the soul of this region. There is no Granville, there is no Newark, there is no Grove City, and there is no Dublin or New Albany without a strong, healthy, vibrant downtown. And that's why the Capitol Line project is so important, is to be investing in ourselves for the future.
So when we look at the plans ahead, what does the timeline look, and how do you construct a project like this? What does it take to build this connectivity within our community?
So as we speak, more or less, I think CDDC is out with a RFP. So there is reality to this. I mean, I usually, we've had a working group and had a number of people kind of that we exposed to this idea early on, and I'd lead and close both with the idea that this is not just a plan, right, or an idea that doesn't happen. This, as the mayor said, is going to happen. We think that we could, have the engineering work and the planning work continue throughout this year. Select kind of the construction team, as the mayor mentioned. CDDC is going to lead that next winter and actually start construction, roughly a year from now. And it would be phased clearly over time, probably 4 phases. And theoretically, more than theoretically, the plan would be to be completed by 2028.
That'll be here before we know it.
Yeah, and it's critical. When you take at all of these other public-private partnerships, it's required significant amount of collaboration, cooperation, partnership. This is going to require that and then some. And so clearly our departments of public service, utilities, development are all going to be involved, but they all understand this is a top priority and we're going to get it done. But we're going to need all our partners in the room to step up to help to make sure that we realize this vision and becomes a reality for this community for the future.
We can tell you're excited about these plans. What are you most excited about when you look at the images that you've brought and the map that will soon be? What are you most excited about for each of you? And this will be our last question before we open it up to our online forum.
I'm sure Jeff will give you a very impressive developer design perspective answer. Mine's very simple, that regardless of whether you're born and raised in this community or you came here last night from wherever in the world, around the state or the country, that you're going to see yourself in downtown and to know that you belong, that everybody belongs in downtown.
Jeff?
I'm most excited that I heard the mayor just basically say what he said when we went to him with the current sculpture, and that was to tell everybody involved that the answer is yes, figure out how to get there. So this will not be without a lot of effort on a lot of people's part. There will be challenges and hurdles. Ultimately, I think the end product will speak for itself, but it's going to take the mayor and others saying the answer is yes, let's get this done. So.
Now, it is CMC's longstanding tradition to take audience questions. I'm sure you have some based on what you've heard and learned today. So we're going to move to questions from our live stream and in-person audiences. So if you are watching online, we hope you are typing those questions in as well. So we've got Doug in the back with CMC curating those questions from our live stream audience. So Jeff, Mayor Ginther, thank you both for what you've shared today. And for those of you in person who have questions for us, we hope you will line up as well with your questions. So Doug, what is the first question that you have today?
Stacia, thank you, and thank you to today's panelists, Jeff Edwards and Mayor Ginther. Thank you very much. I know many of you here in the audience have questions for us, so please come on up here and line up behind me. Please do keep in mind that great questions at CMC have 2 things in common. They take less than 30 seconds to ask, and they end with a question mark. So here is the first question. This viewer is curious to know how this plan intersects with plans for public art in Columbus, and if so.
Tom's in the audience here. I know that. We're in the midst, the GCAC is in the midst and getting close, I think, to putting a wrap on a study, a public art study. And clearly, art in all means and forms, both local and even on a more maybe national basis, I think are going to play a big role in this. So I bet I'm on that steering committee, I guess, or study committee of sorts, and I know that this, this is right down their alley in that regard too. So I think and we've done even some additional work that we didn't really show today to try to kind of work through the idea that this can be both educational from an art perspective, but also history. Whether it's architectural and things you would see on the trail, or about the state of Ohio, or about the city of Columbus, or about the flood, things like that that are of interest on this trail, those stories could be told kind of in an artistic and creative way. So,
Question in the back.
Yes, thank you. Jane Scott. We've seen a lot of effort being put into Franklinton and in the Short North and the Brewery District, the Arena District. How does the loop tie into those neighborhoods, and do you anticipate potentially some draw from those neighborhoods into this area?
Our goal and vision is that the Capitol Line helps to make downtown accessible for folks that live here, that are visiting here, or from all over the region and the state. But we think it's also going to help connect adjacent neighborhoods, neighborhoods near downtown to downtown as well. So we think, and when you look at other cities, the impact in adjacent neighborhoods, to the Beltline and the Cultural Trail in Indianapolis has been significant and positive. So we think they're going to be great benefits in adjacent neighborhoods as well.
and it's maybe not in the absolute first phase or even the fourth phase, but the spurs, let's just call them that, into the neighborhoods, the near downtown neighborhoods are already being contemplated. That's a big part of this plan, is to try to draw the 50 or 60,000 residents that live just outside of the inner belt into downtown, which currently that doesn't really happen very often.
They're great examples. When you think of connectivity and restorative infrastructure, you don't have to look any further than the Near East Side and see what the Longstreet Cap has done to the King Lincoln Bronzeville neighborhood. We know that connecting neighborhoods that for whatever reason have been cut off because of infrastructure decisions made in the past, we can reconnect with thoughtful, inspiring connectivity and restorative infrastructure.
Thank you. Aaron DiGirolamo on the live stream audience asks, is there an opportunity to use ARPA funds on this project?
Potentially. I'd have to check with finance to see if ARPA funds would be eligible for this. I'm not sure, but I think we're focused more on trying to use capital dollars, infrastructure dollars. We really believe those rescue plan dollars should be spent based on the Recovery and Resiliency Advisory Committee recommendations. What we wanted to make sure we were focused on, a good amount of our resources, ARPA dollars, have been spent on youth, housing, and keeping folks in their homes. A lot of the recommendations focused on how can we have a more dynamic and inclusive recovery from the pandemic than we had from the Great Recession. We wanted to do things differently, be purposeful and intentional. And so we're going to continue to focus on housing, wealth building, and expanding opportunities for folks who have been most negatively, disproportionately impacted by the pandemic. But we're all ears for other ideas.
Hi, Hillary Kirchner, first-time guest. So thank you for this great idea. You mentioned that downtown is for everyone, and I agree. As a member of NABO Columbus, I was wondering what's being done to ensure that small, diverse businesses and populations in the area are involved in building this transformation, and how can we increase that diversity?
Great question, and our Opportunity Rising Equity agenda is very much focused on how do we make sure that the folks that have helped make this community so special are able to benefit in the growth of the future. We want our growth, we don't just want to be bigger, we want to be better. We want the growth to be dynamic and inclusive. And so we're really proud of what we've been able to do as a city, and I'm really proud of CDC and other partners that are going to be working on this project. We put in place some of the highest goals and standards for public-private partnerships, and you can take a look at the new Lower.com Stadium and other public-private partnerships that have exceeded all of our goals with minority and female participation, and in some cases have opened up doors to women and minority businesses for ongoing operating services that can be provided. So we're excited about the opportunity. Know that we're going to be bringing that lens of equity that I've talked about today, not just for people to access and enjoy the Capitol line, but the women and folks from different communities that have been left out in the past to actually build it.
And at a more granular even level, Councilman Bankston recently, over the last 12 months, introduced a program to help fund and fill vacant storefronts downtown with business, fledgling startup businesses to a large degree that are either women or minority owned, and they've got kind of their first class of individuals that they want to sponsor that are at this moment even probably hearing the news or beginning to hear the news that they've been selected and would be retailers and/or some kind of service providers that would both, one, help downtown and help the retail scene, but two, help the community and help them.
Thank you. Joseph Koralewski asks, does this plan, or maybe other plans, contemplate 4th Street and subsequently 3rd Street becoming two-way streets?
This plan does not contemplate that. So, and even if it did, I wouldn't probably admit it, but because that's not my job for sure. But what we've done in planning this is we've deferred entirely and acknowledged that there's a whole much larger thing going on downtown in terms of transit and all of the things that are in our future. And I will tell you, I was privileged enough to get an hour presentation on Link Us. I went into it skeptical. I think of what it could accomplish, and I left that 1 hour thinking it was the greatest, smartest idea, and I'm a full-blown advocate for the way in which they're approaching it. So.
That's an unpaid advertisement for next week's CMC when we're back here to talk about Link Us, but I think it's a great point. What we envision and what we are going to do as a community with this Capitol Line project can only really be fully realized if we're successful in passing and implementing the Link Us initiative. It will be a game changer for our community. And we'll take this Capitol Line project and make it a national icon.
From what you've seen with the other examples, Indianapolis, and I know you said, we're going to do it better. What specifically are you targeting that you've seen that you thought, oh, we could definitely do that way better? What are you excited to accomplish to take it to the next level based on what you've seen?
I think both the mayor and myself mentioned, the building blocks that we're building off of, the Scioto Mile and the Vets Museum and Columbus Commons, these are world-class kind of assets, again, that just lack the connectivity. In Indianapolis, they built the trail first and then had to think about doing these other investments. So for us, it's easier in that regard. But their trail is maybe 12 feet wide. It's very nice, and it's a dream to ride a bike on. But we're thinking bigger than that, right? And more like 30 feet wide and much more green, and being able to really tell these architectural and historical stories through art and through other experiences. And there's a little bit of that on those other trails, but not to the extent I think that we could do it here.
Doug?
Thank you. Car-free, pedestrian-only streets seem to create great neighborhood vibes in many cities around the world. Are any pedestrian-only streets in Columbus's future?
Anything's possible. We think that right-sizing these streets downtown can get us a great deal of benefit for folks to experience some of these incredible amenities and experience the connectivity of the Capitol Line project, whether you're on foot, bike, or in a vehicle. But, you know, I've been to some of the places that are being described, and they are dynamic. They're great places for communities to gather and engage and talk about what's most important going on in those communities, and something we'll remain open to. I mean, to think about a Capitol Line project or any of these amenities that we're going to connect through this effort in Columbus 30 years ago is hard to wrap your head around. And where Columbus is 30 years from now, you know, it'll be up to the mayors and business leaders and those driving downtown to make those decisions.
There'll certainly be streets, I think, even in this plan, specifically maybe even Gay Street, where it's maybe going to be more comfortable to be on foot or on a bike than it will be. And comfort's not the right word. It'll be very convenient to be on foot or on a bike, and maybe less so to be in a car. And that's okay, because one of the things we looked at was other, really streets as places, right? And there's a number of examples of that across the world, you know, whether it's Las Ramblas in Barcelona, Lincoln Road in Miami. This is an opportunity to take a street and make it a place, right? A habitable, enjoyable experience as opposed to a place to just drive through.
Yeah, and you think about Columbus's growth and development, it's really been in the last 75 years, and what has been new about our culture and society in the last 75 years, it was designed around vehicles and people being in their vehicles, getting into downtown and out of downtown as quickly as possible. Well, that's not really good for placemaking. That's not really good for welcoming people from all walks of life, those that can afford a car and those that cannot, some that choose to have a car and those that choose to not. To be able to access and to enjoy all these incredible amenities we've invested in, it does take a certain amount of retrofitting, right-sizing, and making sure that regardless of how you get around downtown, that you feel safe and comfortable.
Question here in our live audience.
Doug Buchanan, Business First. Also a question about right-sizing, office market versus residential market downtown. Obviously, one of your buildings is being converted. So to downtown and along this corridor, what kind of development, what kind of mix of development do you see?
I mean, I think it's probably pretty apparent, maybe to everybody in this room even, that, you know, residential really is going to be the next and needs to be the next wave of development in downtown Columbus. I mean, although, you know, I'm maybe not quite as pessimistic about the downtown office market as some maybe, and it really wouldn't take too many other conversions, but having done one, I can tell you they're not very easy at all. But, you know, if even two good-sized office buildings, some of which you've read about and are, you know, kind of maybe at a crossroads, were to be converted to residential, I think it, you know, it could pretty quickly really make the downtown office market a lot more healthy. But again, like we mentioned earlier, everything that's good for a downtown resident in terms of making it more livable and walkable and more pleasant in the placemaking is also good for the office workers too. So ultimately that means people want to come back to the office as opposed to being told that they've got to come back to the office. And there's a few employers that have been less encouraging than others to get their people back downtown. There's no secret about that. I won't call them out. But if you know people that are influential about those decisions, get on them about sending people back to work. So,
Next question.
Good afternoon. Candace Klepaz, Pepper Construction, and a commissioner for NEAC. Earlier, you mentioned the Lincoln-Bronzeville area as an example of kind of reconnecting downtown. One of the things that we've seen in the Near East side is some of our businesses have moved out of the Near East and gone to other areas that have been kind of focus areas, for example, Franklinton. Could you speak to how we ensure we don't end up in a robbing Peter to pay Paul scenario for our neighborhoods for this type of project?
Yeah, it's very fair, and I appreciate you raising it. We have to be focused on keeping the small businesses that exist in this neighborhood and in neighborhoods throughout the city, but also continue to grow and help. As Jeff mentioned, one of the folks championing the Accelerate Columbus effort Councilmember Nick Bankston. He's done a great job working with development to help prepare our small minority female-owned businesses in downtown to grow and expand. And so that effort is going to be working alongside the Capital Line project, because not only do we want folks from all over the community to be part of the building of the future, we want them to be part of the benefiting of the future. And so that's going to be critically important for us to make sure that all that we're doing with small minority and female-owned businesses as a city and as a community is focused on how to really leverage and take advantage of this investment in this project for the future.
Hi, Kelly Stevelt. I am really excited to hear about this. I lived in Washington, D.C. for a while and was car-free, and I really loved it and missed it. Part of what made that possible, though, was that there were lots of farmers markets, grocery stores, things that you could access. How does this plan take that into account as we think about adding more residential downtown?
They're putting me on the spot about the grocery store, I think, so. The mayor's very excited about an urban grocery store. Greg Davies personally is very excited about a downtown grocery store, and having now lived downtown for, I think it'll be 5 weeks tomorrow. Not that I'm counting the days, but in unpacking boxes. But it is important. I think it's as much of important, I think, that in terms of perception, of having, and that's not to say that there are not places to go grocery shopping near, in what in other cities would be considered pretty urban, right? Like the Kroger in the Brewery District. There's a new Lucky's almost open, I believe, on Neal Avenue, just out barely into Victorian Village from the Arena District. We have had the Hills Market in the neighborhood launch area for a decade or so. Clearly, though, a full-blown urban format major grocery store potentially on the peninsula, is what I hear, would be a boon in that regard. I mean, funny enough, I think we saw 2 or 3 downtown grocery stores on our Indianapolis little bike ride. So it's doable.
Thank you. Tim Hopman asks, accessibility for all also means affordability. Will the Capital Line project or other initiatives help ensure that development includes eateries and retail that will draw those who can't afford the higher end amenities?
Yeah, it's a great question, and one of the reasons I've talked a lot about equity and affordability, and it's really become a top priority for CDC, with the current leadership and moving forward. We want to make sure that everybody can access and enjoy and live in downtown regardless of what they do in this community. We think that everybody that works in this region should be able to afford to live here, and that doesn't determine whether or not you drive the bus, you teach our kids, you take care of our parents, you work in any of these great health systems. Regardless of what you do for that health system, you ought to be able to afford and enjoy downtown life and be able to access some of the great amenities. And that's what this is all about, making sure that everybody sees themselves in downtown and that everybody can experience a great, vibrant quality of life downtown.
Doug with the final question.
Hi, yes, Margie Pizzuti. In the spirit of accessibility, how do we contemplate addressing individuals that have disabilities or are differently abled in terms of mobility downtown with this fabulous project, by the way?
Yeah, I think, Jeff really spoke to it, that because of the way our streets are designed and a lot of the streetscapes and so forth are set up currently downtown, it can be very limiting or challenging for folks with different challenges with getting around and challenges with respect to disabilities. And we think that having more areas for folks on foot or other means to safely get around, as well as these dedicated bike lanes, are going to go a long way towards that. Having more space dedicated to folks who aren't in cars to be able to safely navigate and enjoy downtown is going to be a big priority of ours.
Any final remarks, Jeff?
Just on that point, that it would be, basically mandated, and that's one, because it's the right thing to do, but two, because it will be. I mean, that's will be a requirement from an architectural and design perspective, that it be fully accessible in every way conceivable in that regard. So.
Well, we wish we had more time to discuss, and we are getting the wrap at this point. So we're going to turn over to Anthony McIntosh for concluding remarks on the Capitol line and our dynamic downtown.
Well, so I must say, having lived in other big cities and now being a downtown resident myself, I am excited to hear about the plans and the transformation for what's going to happen in downtown Columbus. We want to thank the presenting sponsor of the Developing a Dynamic Downtown series, the Columbus Downtown Development Corporation and Capital South, and series sponsor Thompson Hine. We also want to thank the sponsors of today's program: Huntington, Schneider Downs, the Edwards Company, the Robert Weiler Company, Installed Business Products, AECOM, Marker Construction, and COSI. Thank you to the Ellis for hosting us today. We're also grateful to the presenting sponsor of our live stream, the Center for Human Kindness at the Columbus Foundation, and to our live stream partner, the Columbus Foundation. And we also want to give a very special appreciation to today's speakers, Marc Conte, Jeff Edwards, Mayor Andrew Ginther, and our host, I knew I was going to screw this up, Stacia Naquin. Give them a big round. So we've already heard teasers for next week's forum, so please make plans to attend next week's forum. Columbus' $8 billion transit gamble can link us build a better commute. With that being said, I would like to thank everyone again for joining. We could not do this without you, and have a great afternoon.